Luke chapter 19 verses 28 to 40. Jesus enters Jerusalem as a king. After Jesus said this, he went on towards Jerusalem. As Jesus came near Bethphage and Bethany, towns near the hill called the Mount of Olives, he sent out 2 of his followers. He said, "Go to the town you can see there. When you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here to me. If anyone asks you why you are untying it, say that the master needs it." The 2 followers went into the town and found the colt, just as Jesus had told them. As they were untying it, its owners came out and asked the followers, "Why are you untying our colt?" The followers answered, "The master needs it." So they brought it to Jesus, threw their coat on the colt's back, and put Jesus on it. As Jesus rode towards Jerusalem, others spread their coats on the road before him. As he was coming close to Jerusalem, on the way down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of followers began joyfully shouting praise to God for all the miracles they had seen. They said, "God bless the King who comes in the name of the Lord. There is peace in heaven and glory to God." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell your followers not to say these things." But Jesus answered, "I tell you, if my followers didn't say these things, then the stones would cry out."
The Last Supper, Matthew 26, verses 17 to 29. And so it was on the first day of unleavened bread that the disciples came to Jesus to say, "Where do you want us to make the preparations to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go to the city where you will meet a man with a pitcher of water. Tell him, 'The master says, my time is near. It is at your house that I will keep Passover with my disciples.'" The disciples did as Jesus had told them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, he was at the table with the 12 disciples. While they were eating, he said, "I tell you solemnly, one of you is about to betray me. The Son of Man is going to his fate, as the scriptures say he will. But alas for that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Better for that man if he had never been born." Judas, the one who was to betray him, asked in his turn, "Not I, Rabbi, surely?" "These are your own words," answered Jesus. Now, as they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and when he had said the blessing, he broke it and gave it to his disciples. "Take this and eat," he said. "This is my body." Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them. "Drink all of you from this," he said, "for this is my blood, the blood of the covenant, which is to be poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. From now on, I tell you, I shall not drink wine until the day I drink the new wine with you in the kingdom of my Father." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks
be to God.
The Gospel is taken from Mark chapter 14, verses 26 to 53. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away, for it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered.' But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though they all fall away, I will not." And Jesus said to him, "Truly, I say to you, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said vehemently, "If I must die with you, I will not deny you." And they all said the same. And they went to a place which was called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. "Remain here and watch." And going a little further, he fell on the ground and prayed, that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible to thee. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what thou wilt." And he came and he found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy. And they did not know what to answer him. And he came the third time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." And immediately, whilst he was speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I shall kiss is the man. Seize him and lead him away under guard." And when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Master!" And he kissed him, and they laid hands on him and seized him. But one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus said to them, "Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled." And they all forsook him and fled. And a young man followed him, with nothing but a linen cloth about his body, and they seized him. But he left the linen cloth and ran away naked. And they led Jesus to the high priests, and all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes were assembled. This is the gospel of the Lord.
This is a reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapters 22 and 23. Jesus before Pilate and Herod. At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the teachers of the law, met together, and Jesus was led before them. They said,
"If you are the Messiah, tell us."
Jesus answered,
"If I tell you, you will not believe me, and if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God."
They all asked,
"Are you then the Son of God?"
He replied,
"You say that I am."
Then they said,
"Why do we need any more testimony? We have heard it from his own lips."
Then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying,
"We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king."
So Pilate asked Jesus,
"Are you the king of the Jews?"
Jesus replied,
"You have said so."
Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd,
"I find no basis for a charge against this man.
but they insisted,
He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here."
On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learnt that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them,
You brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him."
But the whole crowd shouted,
"Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us!"
Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again. But they kept shouting,
"Crucify him! Crucify him!"
For the third time he spoke to them.
"Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him."
But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will.
The reading is taken from the 15th chapter of Mark. The soldiers took Jesus inside to the courtyard of the governor's palace and called together the rest of the company. They put a purple robe on Jesus, made a crown out of thorny branches, and put it on his head. And then they began to salute him. "Long live the King of the Jews!" They beat him over the head with a stick, spat on him, and fell on their knees and bowed down to him. When they had finished mocking him, they took off the purple robe and put on his own clothes, and then they led him out to crucify him. On the way they met a man named Simon, who was coming into the city from the country, and the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. They took Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they tried to give him wine mixed with a drug called myrrh, but Jesus would not drink it. And then they crucified him and divided his clothes among themselves, throwing dice to see who could get the piece of clothing. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The notice of the accusation against him said, "The King of the Jews." They also crucified 2 bandits with Jesus, one on his right and the other on his left. People passing by shook their heads and hurled insults at Jesus. "Aha! You were going to tear down the temple and build it up again in 3 days. Now come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law jeered at Jesus, saying to each other, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let us see the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him." And the 2 who were crucified with Jesus insulted him also. At noon, the whole country was covered with darkness, which lasted for 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud shout, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why did you abandon me?" Some of the people there heard him and said, "Listen, he's calling for Elijah." One of them ran up with a sponge, soaked it in cheap wine, and put it on the end of the stick, and then he held it up to Jesus' lips and said, "Wait, let us see if Elijah is coming to bring him down from the cross." With a loud cry, Jesus died. The curtain hanging in the temple was torn in 2, from top to bottom. The army officer who was standing there in front of the cross saw how Jesus had died. "This man really was the Son of God," he said. Some women were there looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of the younger James and of Joseph, and Salome. They had followed Jesus while he was in Galilee and had helped him, and many other women who had come to Jerusalem with him were there also. It was towards evening when Joseph of Arimathea arrived. He was a respected member of the council, who was waiting for the coming of God. It was preparation day, that is, the day before the Sabbath. So Joseph went boldly into the presence of Pilate and asked him for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that Jesus was already dead. He called the army officer and asked him if Jesus had been dead a long time. After hearing the officer's report, Pilate told Joseph he could have the body. Joseph brought a linen sheet, took the body down, wrapped it in the sheet, and placed it in a tomb which had been dug out of solid rock. And then he rolled a large stone across the entrance to the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph were watching and saw where the body of Jesus was placed.
Very early the next day at sunrise, the 3 friends of Jesus went to visit his tomb. As they came towards the tomb, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, and they were fearful because they didn't know what happened. They ran quickly towards the tomb. Jesus wasn't there. Inside the tomb was an angel dressed in white. "Don't be afraid," said the angel. "Jesus is not dead. He is alive." The angel in the tomb said to the 2 friends, "Don't be afraid. Go quickly to the other friends of Jesus and tell them what has happened." What joy! They were so delighted to hear this good news. Their tears of sadness turned to tears of joy. "Go," said the angel, "and go tell your friends to meet Jesus in Galilee. He will be waiting for you there." They started to run when suddenly in front of them appeared Jesus. Was it really Jesus? Both of the friends fell at his feet, worshipping him. "Don't be afraid," Jesus said to them. "Go now and tell my friends that I will meet you in Galilee."